I'll ask Dr. Kapoor to chair these sessions. And Amrish, I have a question for you, and there is a question from audience as well, because we are streaming it on the YouTube as well. In obese patients, how do you have any difficulty in insunating them, or do you need some special probes, higher frequencies, lower frequencies?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So obviously the curvilinear array probes are the ones with low frequency work particularly well when there's depth involved. And the abdominal probe, sometimes you get very, very obese patients with deep groins and also deep popliteal fossae. And in such cases, you have to use the curvilinear probes, which are about 5 megahertz, which work perfectly well.
And there's another question about ultrasound guided punctures of the arteries. I mean, whether you have some special techniques, or it's still a time to use those smart needles, which are needles which have a hook or a which is tipped onto the transducer, and then you can directly puncture. So what is your technique of doing that? Is it like you do a separate ultrasound probe in one hand and then puncture, or you have a smart needle?
So no, we don't have a smart needle. We use we have a dedicated ultrasound machine in the cath lab, in our hybrid cath lab. And what's quite beneficial is that the ultrasound image is also transmitted on the screen in front of the operator. So you don't have to kind of turn your head while you're doing the puncture. You can look right ahead of you. So there's immense hand-eye coordination. I think we've been doing 100% of our arterial punctures under ultrasound guidance. It's very important to do this. And because you have to avoid anterior plaques. Sometimes inadvertently you can cause dissections, flaps might be raised. So the technique is actually, I tend to prefer keeping the probe transverse and keeping the needle on the lower edge, lower margin of the probe, exactly in the center. I think achieve some amount of centering, and the rest of it, I think, just follows. But definitely 100% arterial punctures to be done under ultrasound guidance. I don't use any appendages, any other apparatus. Just keep it coterminous with the middle of the probe in the transverse position.
Okay. So that's, and Dr. Kapoor, you had some question?
Okay, what I was saying was that this was excellent demonstration of the basic venous system that he showed us very well, and he showed us the arterial system very well. So I think all in all, it was excellent, and he also showed us. Now, the question that will come up is that use after you have done the venous, you have done the laser obliteration of the veins, and then to find out whether that has been done successfully or not. So you'll have to repeat the study. Some perforators have been left behind. So how do you look for those? And what can be done for those perforators which have been left, whether you like to do injections, or you like to give you like to have a micro laser catheter.
What was the quick question regarding the perforator, I think?
The question was, how do you follow your patients after doing endovenous laser therapy? What do you do with perforators if they are left behind?
So once an endovascular laser or RF or microwave therapy is done, I mean, most of us call them after 10 days, or if they stay far, within a month, and then we scan them in lying and standing position, because we all know that sometimes if the perforators are large and we have not tackled at the same time with the laser, and we have just done a foam sclerotherapy, they can recanalize, and then we call them, and then if required, we do a sclerotherapy right at that time in our OPD. And if the perforator is too large and it recurs after 6 months or maybe a year, and if he has an ulcer, then we may do a dedicated ablation with the laser. Or a dedicated RF probe, which was available earlier. Yeah.
Okay, good.
And Amrish, there's another question for you. How do you follow your patients of DVT? In terms of follow-up, how frequently you call them? What do you exactly look for? how do you rule out a patient of May-Thurner, a patient with DVT? Is it possible to do only with a duplex scan, or you need the intravascular ultrasound? So these are some questions which have been asked.
That's for me?
Yes, that's for you.
Right. So I think the important thing about management of DVT is that the acute management of deep venous thrombosis lasts for about 3 months. So that's the absolutely essential form of treatment that has to be administered. Any kind of anticoagulation, you might decide to give the newer agents or the conventional vitamin K antagonists. And so a lot of people tend to call back patients after 1 month for a repeat scan. I normally tend to call them back after 2 months for a repeat scan to assess what kind of recanalization is underway. And subsequently, if one has to administer anticoagulation, will depend not just on the residual thrombus burden, but also on whether there are any transient or persistent risk factors for thrombosis. If there are risk factors for thrombosis that are persistent, then anticoagulation should continue for as long as the risk factors persist. If the factors persist for life, then I think this is a case for indefinite anticoagulation therapy in these patients. As regards May-Thurner syndrome, young patients, particularly with sinister left-sided iliofemoral proximal DVT with tense limbs, should be considered as candidates who might be having May-Thurner syndrome. I think if there's a high clinical suspicion, I tend to get a CT venogram done in these patients. And if at all there is a presence of some amount of compression of the left common iliac vein by the right common iliac artery, I think it's best to subject these patients, if they present in the early window, to catheter-directed pharmacomechanical thrombolysis, and also an intravascular ultrasound in the same session, and subsequently decide if they require any intervention for the structural stenotic area of May-Thurner syndrome, or we can leave that for a later intervention after thrombolysis.
Yeah, that's very important, especially the left-sided DVT in mobile patients. It has to be very careful and have a high clinical suspicion for May-Thurner's. So thank you very much, Amrish and Vrinda. So we move on to the third talk, which is by Dr. Rakesh Gupta, who is a cardiologist, vice president of Cardiological Society of India, and he is one of the very terrific ultrasound and echo person in the whole of the country. I think he is also the president of the Echocardiography Society of India. So Dr. Rakesh Gupta.